You're listening to The Step Back, a Mavs podcast.
I'm too hot right now. Step back. Step back. I ball like the Mavs, running this beat like a lab. Luka Don chicken, the step back. Lord, that boy need a map. Dirk in his bag, I swear I feel it in the air. Dirk in the game, snapping like a crab. But he never fold when they in the jam. Dennis Smith Jr. coming with the jam. Got the whole team cooking in the lab. I say I'm the best, I'm going super saiyan. I'm in the booth spitting cause I can. I'm so fly and I may never land. I thank God for every one of my fans. SOD Trigg, just for the chance. Dirk catch five, they ain't got a chance. This came from God, this was a chance. Defense for real, coming with the clowns. Promise it get scary, killing beats and bury. I ain't never worried, never in a hurry. Crazy comments, it don't ever hurt me. Feelings I'm dispersing, is it really worth it? Never said I'm perfect, shine like a star. Any beat I get, I promise I'm a merchant. Still a humble servant, coming at your service. I feel like
Welcome to another edition of The Step Back, a Mavs podcast. You can follow us on Twitter at StepBackMavs, and you can like, rate, and subscribe to our podcast on iTunes, Google, Spotify, and all other major pod platforms. My name is Dalton Trigg, and as always, I'm joined by my co-host and DallasBasketball.com colleague, Matt Galatzan. Matt, we've got some stuff going on. This is our first official emergency pod. Woj has reported that the Dallas Mavericks are escalating talks to trade my guy, Dennis Smith Jr. Oh my goodness. I was not expecting this soon, but we're apparently here. What are you feeling right now?
Doesn't matter what I'm feeling, man. How are you doing? I know this is a big deal for you. I'm worried about you.
I'm hurt, man. I'm not going to lie. I'm pretty hurt right now. That's been my guy. I've been standing for Dennis since they drafted him. Even when all the rumors and everything come up, I was just like, no. Even when we discussed it on, I believe it was the first podcast we did. We discussed, like, even if, Bradley Beal came up as an option, and I was just like, I don't even know there. I mean, because you never know what Dennis could potentially turn into. So I'm still in awe of this. I'm still soaking it all in. I did think if they did trade Dennis, that it would potentially end up being a team like Orlando. I don't know. I'm still in shock though, man. And the thing about it with me is there's a lot to this Woj report, and there's just a lot to unpack here.
Well, I'm as shocked as you were. I was at dinner, and you texted me, and you were like, "Hey, man, Woj," and you sent me the tweet. And I was just like, "Oh my God, there's no way. Like, what could either of those teams possibly have that the Mavericks would want?" And there's only one name that came to mind. We'll get there in a bit, but man, I was all aboard the Dennis train. I was a little skeptical earlier in the year when they were, still trying to figure out with him and Luka, and it started going really well there for a little bit. Even in that loss in the New Orleans game, I was really confident about it. I think I even sent you a text, if you remember, that said during that game, I've never been more confident in Dennis and Luka working than I am right now.
Oh yeah, that was when I don't remember exactly when you sent that, but I feel like it was sometime after Luka passed it to a cutting Dennis and he just completely destroyed Julius Randle. I feel like it was sometime shortly after that.
It was, and he'd been playing really well that game. His defense had been great. He was making good decisions, quick decisions. And then ultimately they lost the game, but I was still super confident going forward. I was like, man, they're two young guys figuring it out. The future is bright. The bright future Mavericks. Chris Vernon on The Ringer always talks about the bright future Grizzlies, but I was thinking bright future Mavericks from that point on. And even, with Dennis being out the last couple games, I was just like, all right, it's just another couple games. He's nicked up. He'll be ready to go. They don't want to take any chances. But when Woj dropped his nuke earlier tonight, man,
well,
I don't know.
And I've talked to you and Fish about this, but that last time in New Orleans, over the last year and a half, I've been able to establish a really good working relationship with Dennis, more so than anyone else on the team. And that last time I was down in New Orleans, I was going to talk to him pregame, but he wasn't in the locker room, so I was just going out to the court for warm-ups, and before I even get to the tunnel, somebody taps me on my shoulder, and I turn around, and it's Dennis, and he's just like, "What's up, Dalton? How you doing, man?" And I was just thinking, like, that's pretty cool right there. He's probably only seen me 2 or 3 times, and he can be courteous like that, and he remembers who you are and all that stuff. So I mean, that's one reason why this is especially painful for me, because like I said, I feel like out of everybody around the Mavs, I feel like he's one of the people that I had a really good working relationship with. So if this is the last time he's going to be a Maverick, it was short and it was sweet, and I hate to see him go.
Yeah, I mean, and even from my perspective, where I don't have the same relationship with him you do. I don't even know if he knows who I am, but in the locker room after games, he's always been one of those guys who, even after a loss, is real friendly with the media, joking around. Real fun guy to talk to. Whereas you talk to guys like DeAndre or Wes, and they're all business and
political.
Political and all that. I mean, DeAndre's got some character to him that's fun sometimes, but with Dennis, it's always just a lot of fun being around him, and practice he's great too. So I can't. I don't want to know what that locker room is going to be like when he's gone, just from a media perspective, because it won't be as much fun. That's for sure. But we don't know it's going to happen yet.
Well, I mean,
when Woj says something, usually it's going to happen. But
yeah,
I don't know. We'll just have to see.
Well, I mean, that's the thing. If it was coming, from some random guy from one of these teams, one of these other teams' media people, we'd be thinking, well, there's not much to this, but there's a reason they call them Woj bombs. And I think there is a lot to this. Just going off of the first part, when I was telling about the Woj report, he said the Dallas Mavericks are escalating talks to trade guard Dennis Smith Jr., pushing to end a partnership that has run its course for both the franchise and the former first-round pick. And then he goes on to say 2 teams in the pursuit of a point guard right now, Phoenix and Orlando, have been active in talks with the Mavericks. And then I saw somewhere on Twitter a while ago that the Pistons are involved there as well. So that's 3 teams.
There might be more too.
I mean, you never know. There really could be more if other teams see that these teams are really after Dennis, or if the Mavs are in contact with them. The Mavs might say, well, we may have better offers elsewhere, and more may surface. So you never know. But just looking at those 3 teams, Phoenix, Orlando, and Detroit, what are some names that you can bring up that would be worthy of parting with Dennis this early?
Well, the one that comes to mind first is really the one is really the only one that makes sense to me off the top of my head, and that's Aaron Gordon. So I was playing around an NBA trade machine while we were getting ready to set up this pod, and I posted this on Twitter. There's a trade where the money works. You can flip picks back and forth, whatever you want to do. But the trade that makes sense to me, considering the assets that are on both teams, I mean, there's not really anybody on Phoenix that makes sense. They're not going to part with DeAndre Ayton, so that's out of the question.
Or Booker.
I don't think they want T.J. Warren. I don't want T.J. Warren.
Oh, come on, man. He averages like 20 points.
On television, but
versus the Mavs at least.
Mikal Bridges isn't a big enough piece to move for Dennis. So, in Detroit, like, get out of here. Forget that. I don't know. So, the name that makes sense to me, and like I said, I posted this on Twitter, is Aaron Gordon. And the trade where the money makes sense is Dennis, Wes as basically the matching money for Aaron Gordon, and I don't know which way the picks would go. I would hope they would come back to Dallas, but that's just the one that comes to my mind. I don't think that Vucevic is an option. Fournier, maybe, but that's just not a big enough piece to move for a guy like Dennis Smith Jr., who's got potential in the clouds. I don't know. What do you think?
Well, I'm trying to be a little bit more objective here because, I mean, you know how, I mean, I'm very biased towards Dennis. I still think he has amazing potential. I think he could, become one of the premier point guards in the NBA, with a little bit more seasoning and a little bit more time, if they just give him time to develop more. But I mean, I don't think it would have to be for Aaron Gordon. I would be okay with a package that either had Jonathan Isaac or even Mo Bamba coming back to Dallas. If it's Mo Bamba, then you pretty much know that DeAndre isn't going to be here after this season, or at least you would hope that. Because if that was the case, I would want Bamba, starting as soon as possible, getting as much experience as he can, playing with Luka at the center position. But I'd be fine with Jonathan Isaac. I think that trade probably makes just as much sense as Aaron Gordon trade, because Isaac, he's technically a power forward. You could play. He's really long. You can. That's something that would keep Harrison Barnes at the 3, as we've talked about before. And then you'd have another long, incredibly talented young defender with upside next to DeAndre Jordan in your front court. So I would be okay with that. I'm with you on Phoenix, though. There's really nothing there I would want. I love Mikal Bridges. If they made a trade revolving around that, I wouldn't be just devastated. But he's older than Jonathan Isaac. I think he's like 22 already, and it's his rookie season. Josh Jackson, I don't really have any interest there. I mean, like you said, they're not going to be parting with Devin Booker or Ayton. And I
wouldn't think.
You would definitely hope that the Mavs aren't persuaded by what TJ Warren does to them every time he plays against them, and you would really hope that there's nothing cooking there. But
the thing, unless Phoenix is the Clippers, and they're gonna, like they did with Blake Griffin, where they give him a big contract and then trade him right away. Like he's really the only piece that I wouldn't even know if I would want Ayton. Like, he's great. He could be great, but I don't know, man. Like, that's not what they're looking for right now, I don't think. And it's the same reason I don't think that Bamba is a legitimate option. I could be wrong, but I think they're looking for someone who can make a difference if they're going to trade Dennis Smith Jr. And even Jonathan Isaac, I don't know, is a guy that can make a difference. They're not just going to trade to kind of sit where they are in the same spot. They're going to try and trade and get better.
Yeah,
I can. That's why I think Aaron Gordon's the only one here that makes sense.
That's a really good point. And even with Jonathan Isaac, if you're just looking at it, if you're just looking at both of those players on an equal slate here, and they're both still pretty raw. I would say Jonathan Isaac has the higher ceiling, of course, because of his size, and he's shown the ability to knock down threes this year. The Mavericks really loved him in the the pre-draft process in 2017, and then it was rumored that Orlando really loved Dennis too. So, I mean, that's another reason I could see this being a fit here. But I think you're right. They're only 2.5 games out of the 8th seed in the West, and we've got 39 games to go. So, I mean, they're right there. If they can make a trade that adds a considerable amount of talent, if they can, like Aaron Gordon, that could push them over the top. It'd be a great combination with Luka. I've said this before about Aaron Gordon multiple times to a number of people. He would be what the Mavs have tried to force Dwight Powell to be. He would be a super Dwight Powell that can actually hit his three-pointers. So,
he's hitting 35.8% this year.
Yeah, I mean, he's really improved there, and I mean, he's on a good contract. It's a weird contract. It actually decreases in value as it goes on, but I mean, I would be fine with that. And another thing before we touch on any other different scenarios here, because I do want to talk about the Pistons a little bit. That's interesting. But another thing in this Woj report, he says that Coach Rick Carlisle and Smith have struggled to find common ground. The arrival of Rookie of the Year favorite Luka Doncic has pushed Smith off the ball and changed the trajectory of his role with the team. Carlisle has often been frustrated with Smith's decision-making. So, I mean, you can read in a lot into that right there, but I mean, what are your initial thoughts on that part?
Well, I don't know, man. I mean, Rick has seemed to have his issues with point guards for the most part. Doesn't it seem that way? I mean, he didn't get along with Rondo.
He's always had issues with
not necessarily with point guards that have an alpha mentality. The only one he's gotten along with an alpha mentality has been Jason Kidd, and that's because Jason Kidd was almost 40 years old.
Well, no.
He was thinking the same way as Rick.
No, I don't even. You may not remember this, but I mean, you didn't hear much about it as it was going on, but he even had tension with Jason Kidd. I mean, I don't know if I'd call it tension, but I mean, there was a lot of arguments there behind the scenes that. I forgot who reported that, but when I read it, I was like, wow, I wouldn't have thought that. But, I mean, he really, if you count Jason Kidd in that too, I mean, he really has had issues with every point guard since then. So, I mean, if that is the case, if Rick Carlisle is one of the main people, basically pushing Dennis out of Dallas, that's a problem because...
Oh, I couldn't agree more.
Now, I mean, if the Mavericks front office, if they're just looking at it from a talent perspective and they're saying, okay, Dennis doesn't fit the way we want him to fit. He's a good player, good young player, but we think we can improve if we trade him for package A or, something like that. If that's the case, that's fine. I mean, we just have to, I trust Donnie to make the best basketball decision. But if it's Rick Carlisle saying that he can't work with this guy and he's pushing a 21-year-old supremely athletic talent out the door this early, that's a problem. And as good of a coach as Rick is, if that's the case, I think you have to start thinking about making changes there in the near future.
No, yeah, I don't necessarily disagree with you. I mean, for Rick to give up on Dennis Smith after really less than a season and a half. I mean, what are they at? They're at their 43rd game of the year right now.
Right.
Just over a season and a half, barely. And he's already giving up on someone that's 21 years old and, like you said, is supremely athletically talented and has shown flashes of being brilliant, really.
He hasn't even played 100 games in the NBA yet. He has played 97 career games to this point.
Yeah, I mean, so really he's played one season and 15 games.
Right.
How are you going to give up on him already?
Yeah, he's played.
And so, that's the thing that's been bothering me the most about this is where it's actually coming from. If the Woj report is correct and it's saying that it's Rick behind the whole thing, I've got a huge problem with this.
Well, and the thing is, I hope the Mavs aren't looking at it like Dennis is the main problem in that starting lineup. Because, I mean, if you look at the advanced stats, Dennis, I mean, it's not great, but he's not in my opinion, I don't think he's the main issue in that starting lineup, because we spoke on it on the last episode about how the Mavs have the worst starting lineup in the NBA when it comes to net rating. It's like getting close to a -8 net rating, which would be, like I said, the worst in the league for a starting lineup. So, I mean, they obviously had to change something, but I don't think they had to trade, Dennis to do that. I mean, I think it could have been as simple as bringing Wes off the bench, and I would have hoped that they would try something like that first before, getting to this point. That's what I would have wanted, and I hate that it hasn't happened, but that's what I want.
Well, Woj makes a point in his report where he says Doncic and Smith average only 100.9 points per 100 possessions in 687 minutes this season. Doncic and rookie guard Jalen Brunson average 106.9 points in 328 minutes, while Doncic and J.J. Barea average 112.6 in 232 minutes.
God, J.J. Barea is good.
But I don't think that tells the whole story. I think one of the things that people might be overlooking with the timing of the Dennis Smith back injury, call it what you want, maybe it's BS or whatever, and they've been looking to move him for the last few days. But there's another thing that's been happening on that lineup too, and that's Wes Matthews' minutes have decreased dramatically in the second half in the last couple games. He did not play any crunch time the last 2 games, and he was basically benched during that time. And I think against Golden State, he only played 23 minutes. So either they're gonna use Dennis and Wes together in a trade, or I don't think a trade's happening. I don't think those two things happen without there being some smoke behind that.
Yeah, I agree with that, and that reminds me of I had a recent conversation with Chuck Cooperstein. We were just talking about, or I was talking to him about how, the Mavs have, it seems like they've tried everything except, changing that starting lineup outside of people getting injured. Because I was like, if Dennis comes back from this back injury, and obviously this was before this report came out and everything, but I was like, when Dennis comes back, they'll run out the same exact lineup, and it's not going to work. And I was like, I just wonder why they won't bring him off the bench. And I mean, he agreed. He said that it was always something he thought should be considered, but he said the Mavs, it's always something that you worry about as a franchise, how a player might take something and how it might affect chemistry and everything. But he also mentioned how his minutes have dwindled the last 2 games, and he had been benched towards the end of the fourth quarter the last 2 games, and that that might be something that comes very soon. Him, that being a possibility that he could be coming off the bench. But now, looking at this report that's come out, like you said, it could be a sign that they're looking to move him too. And let's see here. Yeah, in the Woj report, he even says Dallas has also searched for deals that would include veteran Wes Matthews, who is making $18.6 million in the final year of his contract. So, in hindsight, Wes hasn't missed any games, but the way his minutes have been going, it makes sense, that's lining up the way it is.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how you can, unless the team has cap space, I don't know how you can move a guy like Dennis for a star, or whether it's Aaron Gordon or whoever. I mean, we'll get to the Pistons in a minute.
Yeah.
Whether it's Aaron Gordon or whoever, you have to have some additional money if you want to get a big time difference maker. So Wes would almost have to be included in that. Maybe even Dwight Powell. So maybe you move 3 guys. Maybe it's just Dennis and Wes. Maybe it's Dennis and Dwight. I don't know. But there has to be something else going on besides just Dennis, because he's on a rookie contract, and $3 million whatever he's making isn't going to get you a big time name.
Right. And we've talked about this before as well, but I've always gotten the feeling, or I get the feeling, that the Mavs are a team that kind of overvalue their players. And sometimes that's a good thing, sometimes it's not such a good thing. But, I mean, I don't expect them to just trade Dennis to trade him, because there's enough time left on his contract, and even when this contract is up, he'll be a restricted free agent unless he takes the qualifying offer. You have to think of this as some team is going to have control of him for 8 or 9 years. So I mean, I don't think they would just trade him for anybody. So that, I think the Aaron Gordon idea that you talked about earlier, and something I've thought about, I mean, I think that's a really good possibility. I'm not going to say it is going to happen, but I can really...
No, we have no idea what's going to happen.
Yeah, I have no idea what's going to happen, but I could really see something. It just makes, to me, something like that makes so much sense for both sides. And then that could be a deal, like you said, you'd be sending back more salary to Orlando in that situation, which would either be
expiring.
Right, expiring in West. Or, I mean, even Dwight Powell, he's got an opt-in option, but he kind of fits the same player profile as Aaron Gordon, just not near as good as Gordon. So, I mean, I think that's definitely a possibility there. But
well, let's run through Aaron Gordon's stats real quick while we're talking about him.
Let's do it.
He's 33.5 minutes a game, 44.6 field goal percentage, 35.8 from 3. That's better than 19.8% or whatever Dwight Powell is. Shout out Dwight Powell. 2-pointers, he's 48.9%, 50.5% effective field goal percentage, 72% from the line, almost 8 rebounds a game, and 15.7 points for the year. So that's a major improvement in your starting lineup over what either Wes or Dwight bring for you.
I agree with that. And, I mean, say you start Luka at the point, from that point forward. You have Luka, I guess you could play Jalen Brunson in the starting lineup. I think that'd probably be the way they end up going over Dorian Finney-Smith, given how he shot the ball lately. But say you go with Jalen Brunson, Luka, Harrison Barnes, Aaron Gordon, and DeAndre Jordan. And then if you want, Jalen Brunson to go back to being a 6-man, basically, you go into free agency and, you still have money to chase a starting shooting guard. And there is a lot of good starting shooting guards that are going to be on the market this summer too. Headlined by Klay Thompson and Chris Middleton, but I mean that's something else to consider there. You basically have every starting position locked up except for the shooting guard position, and we know how the Mavs feel about free agency and playing powder and all that stuff, but if they consider Aaron Gordon a star player, or potentially a star player, they might go ahead and make that move and then try to add to it this summer with a shooting guard.
No, yeah, that's a really intriguing package to present to free agents, and I don't want to get too hyped up on the free agent train, considering the Mavs past in that area. We're all well aware of that, but I don't necessarily even think that if they make the move of trading Dennis to Orlando for a guy like Gordon, if they bring Wes in, with that trade as well. I kind of think Luka is still your starting point guard. I mean, man, he's really thrived in that position. He was great playing the wings, and that's good. But as a point guard, he's been fantastic, absolutely fantastic. So, maybe there's something else that they bring back with Aaron Gordon that can fill into that shooting guard role. Like, I don't know, Terrence Ross. I don't know what his contract is. I can look it up real quick. But that could even be a better option, and because you need a guy like.
I don't know what his salary is, but I know Ross.
I'm looking it up right now.
I know he's expiring.
But I mean, that's even a better option at shooting guard than than having Jalen Brunson in starting lineup, because you need Jalen Brunson off the bench to kind of give that juice some mojo. Like, I mean, that group some mojo.
Right.
Because
and by the way,
especially without JJ, I mean, man, that Achilles news was absolutely devastating.
That's exactly.
Not just to him, but to all Mavericks fans. He's been a warrior for the Mavericks, and at his age, that's going to be really difficult to come back from. But you almost need Brunson coming off of the bench just to give that unit some offense, because without JJ, it's not looking good, man.
Yeah, I was about to say that. Before we go in any further into this, it really sucks hearing that about JJ, man. I was so depressed. As soon as I saw that play happen and he hit the floor and he was grabbing for his Achilles, deep down, I just kind of knew that's what it was, and just immediately got extremely depressed over that. He's been so good this year and last year. He's leading the team in assists. So, I mean, we hated to hear that. Wish him a very speedy recovery, a full recovery, and hopefully it's not the last we've seen of JJ. But, I mean, like you said, at his age, it's hard to come back from. And, I mean, it honestly wouldn't surprise me if he decided to retire with Dirk this summer. But we'll see how that goes.
All right, I've got Terrence Ross's stats up. You want me to go through them?
Yeah, what you got?
He hasn't started a game this year, but he's played in 43 games, averaging 25.8 minutes a game. So he's basically been kind of a sixth man for them based on the stats that I'm looking at. 43% from the field, 38% from three, which is better than what West is shooting, I believe. 47% from two, 52.7 effective field goal percentage, 84% from the line, which would be big for the Mavs.
Mm-hmm.
Averaging a steal a game, 1 turnover a game, and 13.7 points. It's the best year he's had in his career from a scoring standpoint, and from a three-point shooting standpoint as well. Except for his second year in Toronto, he shot 39%. But other than that, it's been the best year of his career. So he's on an upslope. So he's just based on the stats that I'm looking at, he's a more productive guy than Wes Matthews. He wouldn't try and do as much as Wes Matthews, as far as I can tell. I don't think there's any question about that. So,
well, and
maybe he's a guy. I can look up his salary. I can just click over his salary real quick. He's earning $10.5 million this year. So I'm not sure if the money would work unless you added Powell to that deal, but maybe you do that now.
Yeah.
And if you need another big, you can, maybe you reach down to the two-way guys like the kid from Louisville whose name escapes me right now, or Giannis's brother, if you really need that extra big just to have in the fold. But I mean, Dwight hasn't been great to me this year, so if you want to move him too, I'm all for that as well.
Well, I think if the Magic are going to include Terrence Ross in anything, they're going to survey what they've got in other offers before they agree to do that. Because like you said, he's been good. He's been good this year, but I saw a thing the other day saying that the Philadelphia 76ers were interested in Ross. They want to add some more shooting. There was another team I can't think of off the top of my head, but there's already interest for him out there, and especially as an expiring deal. So I don't know if that's a piece that they would include sending him back to the Mavs, but he would be a much needed scoring punch coming off of that bench, a reliable scoring punch at that too. But
well, maybe he doesn't need to come off the bench.
You're right. He could start, like you said, just leave Jalen Brunson there, taking over JJ's role, and
because if you move Brunson off the bench, there's not a backup point guard there. I mean, you got Devin, but he's been more of a 2 throughout the rest of his career so far. Right. So to move him back into a point guard role when he's been playing 2 the last couple of years is probably not a great idea.
Right. I agree. I mean, I think it could work. I just don't know. It just depends on what other offers Orlando's getting for Terrence Ross individually.
Sure, yeah.
But okay, we said we were going to talk.
Let me make one more point. If you have to make that a part, if you want to make Terrence Ross a part of the deal, if you have to part with a early to mid second round pick to do it, do it. Because I don't know what Philadelphia would offer back in return that's more enticing than a second round pick and the rest of the pieces that the Mavs are going to send and including in that deal. So the more I think about it, the more it makes sense.
Right. Well, we can get into more of that if it comes to it, but like we talked about before, we said we were going to bring this up, but the other team that has, surfaced in this a little bit, the Detroit Pistons, what could you see happening in that scenario? Because to me, if something happens there, I feel like Andre Drummond might be in play. Maybe not. I still feel like the Mavs really like DeAndre Jordan, but Andre Drummond, he's only, let me see here, he's 25 years old. He's got 2 more years on his contract after this. He's got a player option for that last year, but what would you think about a trade package centered around Andre Drummond coming to Dallas?
Well, the only way that works to me is if you include DeAndre Jordan. And as close as Rick and DeAndre are, I don't see that happening. But Andre's averaging 16.8 points and 15 boards a game. I'm looking through the rest of his stats, but
it's amazing to me that he's only shooting 50% from the field. I mean, I guess we're
considering how close he is to it all the time.
Yeah. I mean, I guess we're just spoiled by DeAndre. I think he has like the 3rd highest field goal percentage in the NBA, but
and it doesn't seem like he does either.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like he misses some easy ones too. But yeah, that's one thing that sticks out to me. I thought he would be a lot higher than 50%. But
okay, 1.6 steals and 1.8 blocks per game from Drummond. So that's a pretty good. Those are some pretty good defensive numbers there. If you look at the advanced stats, his defensive win shares this year is only 2.7, but last year it was 5.7, which is very, very good. It's been up in that area the last few years before this year. It's a little down this year. I just don't think they're as good of a defensive team this year. Maybe that's why. But if you look at the rest of the Pistons roster, what else is there?
Well,
Reggie Jackson, no thanks. Blake Griffin, no.
You could put a package together, for Blake Griffin if you liked Blake Griffin, but the length of his contract and him making north of $32 million a year.
But hold on.
I think he's already 30. Aaron Gordon, you look at that.
Aaron Gordon is what is a younger version of Blake Griffin.
Right.
Are we really trying to put together the Clippers team that couldn't make it back? It couldn't make it to the finals with DeAndre and Blake.
Right, and Aaron Gordon has learned how to shoot the 3 a lot quicker than Blake too. So
yeah, I'm out on Blake Griffin. So I don't see that happening. Drummond's the only guy on that team that makes sense.
Stanley Johnson, I'm intrigued by him. He really hasn't showed much since the Pistons drafted him, but I'm kind of intrigued by him. Luke Kennard.
Luke Kennard can shoot now.
Yeah, he could be a good bench scorer. He could be kind of. I feel like he could be kind of like how Doug McDermott was last year, which we all expected Ryan Broekhoff to be like Doug McDermott.
Yeah, but I mean, Kennard has the ability to shoot, but he hasn't been very good this year. His PER is only at 9.4, which is not good. His shooting, he's shooting 35%, which is okay. I mean, last year he shot 41.5%, which was obviously what you would want him to be, you would want him to be at.
From 3, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So, I don't know. I also, another thing about that is, are we really trading Dennis to get another Doug McDermott?
Right.
I don't think so.
Well, if you did DeAndre Jordan for Andre Drummond, and say they want to go ahead and move Dennis too. I mean, you want to get, obviously you're not going to do DJ and Dennis for Drummond, but you know, if you could get another young piece from them, like if you did get, say, Luke Kennard in that deal, and you're getting Andre Drummond, who's locked up for at least 2 more years, I mean, that would be something I would think about. But
that's much more intriguing.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot more intriguing, but I think we're both on the same page here when I think the best offer or the best scenario that could come from this is probably in Orlando.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And, you know, maybe it's a 3-team deal where Dennis goes one way, Wes goes another way, or whatever. But, I mean, honestly, I hope these aren't the only teams involved. I'd like to think that maybe Woj just hasn't gotten his hands on all the details yet.
Look, man, I'm still holding out hope for Washington. I don't know. Think
about the timing. It never makes more sense than it does right now for the Mavericks to go after Bradley Beal or Otto Porter, one of those guys. If they're really ready to trade Dennis, he's the piece that you would need in those trades to make that happen.
Well, see, as much as I like Otto Porter Jr., I wouldn't include Dennis in a trade for him. I would want that to be either some kind of deal involving Wes as, basically just salary filler because they want cap relief when his contract expires this summer, or maybe even an even swap with Harrison Barnes. But
I wouldn't want to do that.
Now Bradley Beal, on the other hand, I mean, you know how I feel about this. That would be incredible. I mean, but the way he's been playing lately, I think, I forgot who said it, since John Wall has been out with his foot or ankle injury, whatever it was, he's averaging over 30 points, 5 rebounds, and 5 assists a game since Wall has been out. So, I mean, his trade value's only gone up, and he's under contract for 2 more years after this year. So, I mean, I just don't know if the Mavs could come up with an offer that would entice the Wizards to trade Beal. Well, at least without a third team involved with multiple pieces going everywhere. But, I mean, I'm going to hold out hope. I'm going to hold out hope until something is finalized, and we'll see how it goes.
I don't remember exactly when. Do you remember when John Wall was announced to be that he was going to be out?
You talking about like the date?
Roughly, yeah.
I can't remember off the top of my head. It feels like it was maybe a month ago. So
let's just say it was, I don't know, we'll say it's around Christmas or maybe a week or 2 before. Let's say it's around December 15th. That's just a rough estimate because we don't remember. But because I feel like it was around when they played Boston. I don't know. Anyway, because from around that time, he's gone for 31, 25, 29, 28, 40, 34, 33. I mean, he's been going off. So it has to be somewhere around then because he's been incredible.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't know what else they would have to include in that. Hell, maybe they take both Beal and Otto Porter and we're dancing down Victory Avenue tomorrow night. But
yeah,
man, there's just so many options.
I'm looking at it now. The day it was announced that that John Wall was going to undergo surgery was right before the new year. It was December 29th, so not quite a month.
Okay, so he's still killing it since then.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, like I said, so with Wall being out, Bill has been averaging over 35 and 5.
Yeah.
So, I mean that's crazy.
Oh, I don't know, man. All I can say is that I'm going to be really upset if they trade him for something like Josh Jackson, because I've seen a lot of people on Twitter like, oh, Josh Jackson.
I'm just not. I'm not high on.
That. And it's just like, huh?
I said I'm just not high on Josh Jackson like some of these people. He's a good player. I think he's going to be a good player, but he's not going to be somebody that I would trade Dennis's upside for.
That's what I'm saying. Like he's fine. He was good against the Mavs the other night. He was the reason Phoenix was in that game in the beginning. But are you really going to trade Dennis for a guy like that who's just as much, if not more, of a project? I don't think so. They're looking to move on from a project and get something that can help them win now, not a guy who's going to,
right,
come in and be good in 5 years or whatever. Because with the ways Luka is playing, if they can get another all-star caliber, maybe not. I don't know if Aaron Gordon's made the All-Star game or not. I'm not looking at that right now, but if they can get a player of that level, that could turn them around into the playoffs this year. And that's what they're looking to do. They're not looking to get, they're not looking to make a lateral move.
Right. I'm looking at this right now, but I mean, just in case everyone is thinking like, well, maybe there's the slightest chance that there's no truth to this or anything, maybe there's a chance that this isn't true. Slam magazine put on Instagram a video of Dennis dunking and said the Mavericks are looking to move Dennis Smith Jr. per Woj. What city needs to acquire this bounce? And Dennis liked it on Instagram. So just in case,
yeah, I'm looking at that right now too.
Just in case anybody thought that there might be a chance that this isn't real, it's real. I think it's inevitable. I think when Woj tweets it out, that's pretty much the kiss of death. It's just a matter of time. Like I said, I sure hope the Mavs know what they're doing. And if it's Donnie making the calls, if he's making a basketball decision, then I trust him. But, it's just one of those things I just feel uneasy about, but life goes on.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really have too much to add to that. There's only two ways this can go, and that's really good or really dumb. It seems like there's no in between. Like I don't think you can include Dennis Smith in a trade where you're just like, all right, that's fine. Like you either got to hit or it's going to be a big miss. And
then another thing, just going off of what I said about when Woj tweets it happens pretty quick. But I'm reading Fish's recent piece he put out, and he said from another NBA source to DallasBasketball.com as of 20 minutes ago, he said, I think if Dallas finds a deal it likes, this trade can go down in the next 24 hours. So that's pretty much my line of thinking too. I think this is going to happen fairly quick, which is why we felt it necessary to give you guys an emergency pod.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully we won't have to do a ton of these this year, but
doesn't happen often, so you have to really relish it.
Yeah, we thought about getting on and doing one after JJ's injury, but it just didn't seem appropriate to base an entire podcast on a guy's injury.
Man, I couldn't have done that.
Yeah, that would have just been depressing. So, I mean, prayers to JJ. Hopefully, he's making a quick recovery. His surgery was successful. For anybody that's wondering,
he was
the Mavs PR put out a statement today saying that he had his surgery, and then JJ posted on Instagram, successful surgery and with a thumbs up. So hopefully he'll be back before too long, or back at all really. And you never know with an Achilles, but Man, I don't really know where else to go from there.
Yeah, no, if y'all haven't seen that Instagram post of JJ, definitely go see it because he is doped up and he is not feeling any pain. And I mean, I thought it was kind of humorous the way he was laying it because, I mean, I just kind of wonder if he had any idea that the picture was being taken.
He didn't look like he did. That's for sure.
But yeah, we wish him a speedy recovery, and obviously he's got the support of all of his teammates. And like I said, we just wanted to come on here and talk about the rumors and give you guys some scenarios that we have going in our heads right now, given the teams that have been announced. And like we've also said, it may not just be those three teams. Before this is over, there could be some other teams involved, and we don't know exactly what's going to happen right now, but we'll keep you posted. You can follow.
Yeah, no, I'm just going to add if Fish's anonymous NBA source is correct, we may be doing another one of these in 24 hours. So
correct.
Stay tuned in.
Yep. If it's one of those deals that's going to get us excited, we could be back on here very soon. But we'll wrap it up with that. We appreciate you guys for listening to us. If you want to find us on Twitter and keep up with all of this Dennis Smith Jr. stuff in real time with us, you can follow me at Dalton_Trigg. That's DALTON_TRIGG. If you want to follow Matt on Twitter too, he's always posting about anything Dallas Mavericks related on there. It's at Matt Galatzan. That's at MattGalatzan. And like I said at the beginning of the pod, you can always follow the pod itself at Step Back Mavs. We're always posting the links there and other content. Anything else you want to add, Matt?
No, sir. Just if you guys wouldn't mind, go out and like and share and subscribe our podcast. Give it to as many of your Mavs friends as you possibly can. We're trying to grow the show, as Ben and Skin say. So just keep it flowing.
Yes, sir. Well, Matt, hope you have a good night. We'll try and do this very soon, and we'll see what happens with all this Dennis Smith Jr. drama.
All right, sounds good.
All right, appreciate y'all for listening, as always.
It's crazy. Music in Texas now.